Good morning everyone. In this video I'm going to analyze the live price action for EU and DXY to see what day trading opportunities there may be. You're going to see my strategy and my technical analysis, so if you're interested in those then please stick around. Cool, so let's start off here on the daily. We've got EU on the top, DXY on the bottom. What is the daily picture telling us? Well, if I just go back into the past price action a little bit, we can see we've got this higher low around this area and a higher high on DXY, which created SMC divergence that resulted in a bullish push on EU. EU had mitigated this weekly fair value gap and closed out as a high test doji after mitigating all the buy side liquidity in this area. Now on Friday we closed out as pretty much a low test doji because we mitigated all the sell side liquidity and we nearly filled the imbalance left behind between the Tuesday and the Thursday. However, inversely on DXY, we actually did fill that imbalance there by the looks of it. So that's the picture that we can see so far. So it showed some deceleration over those 2 days in my opinion on the higher time frame daily chart. So over those 2 days we took buy side liquidity and then sell side liquidity and just closed out in the same area. So what else do we have here? We have our previous daily highs and lows. Both of those are still intact so far today. We have a little bit more room to consider possibly for downside price draw on EU. So that's to bear in mind, but we have filled that gap on DXY. We're probably going to get a better picture on the lower time frame. So let's go down to the 4 hour and see what that shows us. So on the 4 hour, you can see we're in a bit of a more awkward position. So this could have been the previous 4 hour leg here. We've now sort of closed above that. That's where we took that buy side liquidity from. So possibly we've created a new bullish leg, right? So if we was to measure it from this low here to this high here, we're still in a premium. So we could consider on the 4 hour, price action may need to come down, maybe filling this 4 hour gap completely or coming down into one of these imbalances or order block POI here at a discount before continuing that bullish move upwards, or it could just be bullish from this point obviously where we've taken sell side liquidity. So that's the bullish outlook. We've got this new leg closed above the previous leg and now price may continue in that direction at some point. However, we also have the scenario that this leg here is to be considered the full leg and price is still hovering around a discount. We've come and mitigated some buy side liquidity in the premium, but as this note is here, we have some more buy side liquidity POIs above. So for all we know, it's for price to come up into this area to continue that bearish trend. So now we've got those two possible scenarios where we're in a bearish or new bullish trend. Price has mitigated the weekly fair value gap, taken some buy side liquidity. So yes, it does give some confluence and bias for us to continue going lower in price. However, we do have our price draws above and even below. We have to be vigilant of those two scenarios, and I think it just paints a picture of being a bit more patient for the lower time frame price structure, and I'll continue telling you that as we go through this to show how I would handle this situation. So back to just concentrating on the 4 hour now. We have this possible leg here. We have price draw POIs to fulfill below or above, and in the previous week we have taken buy side liquidity, filled a weekly fair value gap. Inversely on DXY, it is the same. We have that leg here down to here. We've taken sell side liquidity from this low here. However, we also have POIs above for price to continue going up to, which would mean downwards on EU. And then we also have more unmitigated POIs below here as we do above here, which price could come down to, which would mean we have further bullish momentum on EU. And breaking this high internally, it would look more like a bullish picture, right? So we have those two possible scenarios here. Price is kind of floating around this middle section here, which is like nearly an equilibrium of the legs. So let's move on to the 1 hour and see what that is showing us. So I don't think the 1 hour picture is that far away from the 4 hour anyway. We have pretty much this leg from the low here to the top there, right? It looks like one continuous leg, apart from maybe around here where we broke these highs. We could call this a leg. However, same thing, we closed above these previous highs, so it looks like we do have a possible bullish leg where we swept that buy side liquidity from and pulled back. On Friday, we can see price swept some internal buy side liquidity here and again here, had a big bearish move, filled this 1 hour imbalance completely, which caused it to also pull back. I believe that was on the NFP announcement, was bearish, filled the imbalance, and then that imbalance and sell side liquidity provided enough to pull back to the origin there. So we have a 1 hour POY there, as you can see in purple here. Price pulled back and has so far respected this POY. This is where we caused, you could say on the 1 hour, a break of structure. Right, we had these highs here, got swept, broke down, new leg, pulled back to the premium of this internal leg here, and price is now overnight and into today in Asia created a range here. So we have this range in the premium, order block still intact, but either way we have a kind of bearish internal leg and we're in the premium of it. Now, things to watch out for, we may need to take some buy side liquidity from above these highs. I'll show that on the lower time frame, but we also have POIs above price here. So price may or may not be ready to continue in this bearish order flow that it created. Again, just to reiterate, when we're in this scenario where it may be a bit more confusing on direction, we're just going to wait for the lower time frames to give us that bias. Here on DXY, we created that same leg. Obviously it is the inverse, so we created that bullish leg, pulled back to that discount of this possible higher high here, higher low there, mitigated this 1 hour order block fair value gap as we mitigated this imbalance here, though the order block is still unmitigated. Price is creating a range and we're just waiting for it to make its move to take some liquidity and give us a direction. So yeah, to summarize that, I think the 1 hour's given us possible bearish bias. We're in a bullish leg, but we're in the premium of it, you could say, and price has built up liquidity here with this range, and we just need to probably see which way liquidity goes and structure goes internally. But we have this leg to follow through, right? Because we're respecting this leg currently. So that's the way I see it. Let's go down to the M15 and see what opportunities may be available for us. Now on the M15 price action, I'll just explain what happened on Friday. You can see we had this price action in Asia, range, swept, broke down, pulled back, London, swept Asia range, didn't quite break the lows, but you know, waited for the news announcement at 8:30 in the US, swept London highs, and then on the news announcement for NFP, broke down, also came and mitigated this M15 order block here, and that was what it needed to make that move finally to go down. We pulled back. We're now in the premium of this area, which is a 1 hour order block and also M15 order block, as you can see, and it held that price. Same thing was on DXY. The M15 order block held, but these are low volatility hours, so price has just been sideways ever since. Asia hasn't moved much, obviously, created some sort of range, has taken some internal liquidity, but we know London, Frankfurt likes to take one side before it moves anyway, so that's probably what we're waiting for here. So in terms of opportunities, here's what I'll be looking for. I think for price to continue where it is now, come up, take the buy side liquidity of Asia, possibly this one here as well, and maybe even the previous daily high because it's close by. So I'm just going to go for that scenario, but just know all the scenarios are the same from taking these buy side liquidities, right? So I think the best picture for it would be to take all the buy side liquidity left here, possibly even go into this 1 hour order block here, price to come up, take that buy side liquidity, create a structure, break that structure, and then we get our pullback into the lower time frame POY to go down. Let me just neaten this up a little bit. Okay, so let me annotate this a bit. So we've got possible breaker structure here. We will be having buy side liquidity taken from all of these highs here, all the way from there. All this buy side liquidity here, swept, break down, internal structure broken from there. Obviously, if we create structure while we're going up and it sweeps this and breaks that, same thing. We would have our inducement for the pullback, possible inducement, right? It's not always going to be there. We have the order block left behind by price, and then we would set our order right there. Stops above the high. You know, this could be a lower high, of course, and make that obvious. Stops above the high, and we trade it down to, you know, the internal high, low here made, London low, Asia low, or if you're going for the structure, we can go for the previous daily low, right? But I like to keep mine a lot more simple than that, so I'd aim for around here. So that's exactly how my order would look. Now this same thing could also happen above price. Let me move this. The exact same thing could happen up here. Okay, so we could go into the 1 hour order block, more or less, it doesn't really matter. Break down, and then we pull back to the same area there and go for that trade. So it's hard to tell, of course, what price is going to do. So you just be patient. You wait to see how much buy side liquidity is going to mitigate. Will it reach into the POI above? Because if it doesn't, that will be a negative, that it's above price when you go to enter, just as an FYI, because it'll be a price draw. So this would be the first immediate opportunities I'll be waiting for, the buy side liquidity to be taken from these areas and price to break down and give us a direction. Because at the same time, if price does this, we should expect to see DXY take out this sell side liquidity before going higher. Now, if it doesn't, that will be SMC divergence. So that will also be on our side either way. Other opportunities, possibly buy opportunities, we'll go through that now. Now for a buying opportunity, I could see a short temporary one from this area if price was to come down. As it does, take one side of Asia, you know, take that sell side liquidity from here. But then we would need to see, I don't know, either another sweep. Either way, I need that big structure shift above here. Price to pull back down to our little POI there. And then we would trade upwards into this area here. So we would have our sell side liquidity swept from this area. So sell side liquidity take from these lows and this internal low possibly. Price to break structure here. So you break structure either internally here or here if it comes that high up. We'll leave behind an order block or imbalance to trade off of. We have our inducement hopefully from a nice corrective pullback internally here. And then we'd have our order set at this area to trade up to come for this buy side liquidity, these highs here that would have been used for the sells, right? So we'd trade it up to that previous daily high, stop below the lows, right? We could aim for nearly 4% on that. So that's what it would look like for me. So I hope it's not confusing with this other picture there. Let me move that out of the way. This is kind of just a short temporary one because the bias of taking the Asia and continuing in that way, we would really need to close below here as preferably a sweep. So it looks like price wants to have that immediate momentum and break above these highs, right? It may just go boom like that above the highs, which would be great as well. As long as there's buy side liquidity left over, this would be a good trade to this POI up here, drawing in on price, this buy side liquidity here, drawing in on price. Otherwise, you would expect a short trade like this to happen around the lows, right down here. So that would be where you'd be expecting it from in a better manner, right? Because we'd be taking these lows. We'd be taking some sort of structural low. We wouldn't be in the middle of price. We'd be in more of a discount. So that may be the better option, but this is also viable for me. I think the most important thing for us to note, though, like I was mentioning earlier, from these trade ideas and this price action, is that I want the lower time frame to dictate which way I trade, when the higher time frame is kind of where it's at the moment. It's a bit more unclear to me. So it could happen here, guys. Like we could sweep this internally here now and have a sharp breakdown, and price could pull back, okay? And then that's where we have a possible trade from, with the negatives of, yes, we have POIs above here and we have some buy side liquidity above here. But if price breaks down strongly here and gives us that pullback, it's price tipping its hat, giving us that direction as to where it wants to go. So I hope that was clear, not too confusing, and you gained value from that. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.